Hello everyone and welcome back to the CloudGuard Portfolio channel. This is project 18 of my 100 CloudGuard Portfolio project. If you're studying for the AWS Solutions Architect Professional exam, you will be tested heavily on CI/CD pipeline design and blue-green deployment strategies. In this project, we are building a complete production-grade pipeline that takes code from a developer's commit all the way to a zero downtime production deployment on Amazon ECS. Without wasting any of your time, let's get into it. Now, before we start, if this series is helping you prepare for your AWS certifications or build your cloud portfolio, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below telling me which AWS service you find the hardest to master. It really helps the channel grow and I read every single comment. Before we look at the architecture, we need to understand the business context. Why do enterprises invest heavily in CI/CD pipeline? I want to assure you that it's not just for speed, it's all about governance, risk, and compliance. First, we start with governance and auditability. AWS CodePipeline logs every execution, stage transitions, and approval actions to CloudTrail, providing a tamper-proof record of who deployed, what was deployed, and when it was deployed. This takes care of the governance part of it. Second, the risk management. Our CodeDeploy blue-green strategy here eliminates downtime. The old blue task set remains alive until the new green task set passes health check. And also it enables instant rollback just in case there's any issues detected in the pipeline. So this ensures zero downtime in our deployment. Third, we have the compliance enforcement. We are building a manual approval gate between staging and production. This enforces a formal change control process. No code can reach production without an explicit human approval action, satisfying both SOC 2 and then ISO 27001 change management controls. And then finally, we have security. For security, we use the principle of least privilege with IAM roles per stage. Every single stage uses least privilege IAM roles, and Amazon ECR scans our container images for vulnerabilities before deployment. Our outcome is a secure, compliant, and reliable CI/CD pipeline that enables a frequent, safe, and auditable deployment on AWS. And this is why businesses choose to go with the CI/CD pipeline. Here's the architecture we are building today. We have a 5-stage pipeline. Stage 1 is where a developer pushes code to AWS CodeCommit. Stage 2, the code pipeline detects the change via an event bridge and then triggers a code build, which builds our Docker image and pushes it to ECR. For our stage 3, CodeDeploy performs a blue-green deployment to our staging ECS Fargate service. Make sure it passes health check, and then we have a load balancer that balances, that makes the transition from the blue to the green. For stage 4, the pipeline pauses for a manual approval. We can set up an SNS subscription that sends an email to our QA engineer or anyone in charge of approval to validate staging and then clicks approve. For the stage 5, CodeDeploy repeats the blue-green deployment to production. Here it was in staging, waiting for approval. After approval, it now repeats the same process to production. It's important to know that at every single stage here, the blue, which is the old task, is still alive until the new version is healthy, giving us an instant rollback just in case anything happens. Same thing for the deploy. The blue task, which is the old task, is still alive, but we're pushing to the green until this has passed health check before this can be turned down. And just in case this one fails, this is still alive, we can just roll back to the blue deployment. Now let's open the AWS console and then deploy. Before creating any resources, there is one IAM prerequisite we need to handle. For everything we're going to be deploying here, we're going to be using AWS Cloud Shell. So I'm just going to go ahead and open a Cloud Shell here. To create the role, we're going to be using the CLI. So come on to Cloud Shell. So if you have never used ECS in your account before, the ECS service linked role does not exist, and our cluster creation will fail if we don't have this role set up already. So we're going to be running this to create the ECS service role. If it already exists in your account, you will get an error saying so. That's okay. It just means that you already have this stage covered. And this is going to be the only IAM step we need to do up front. So let's go ahead and create it. And this is the error we're going to be receiving saying we already have it exist. So it already exists, and this is fine. If you get this error, this is perfectly okay. Let's go ahead and start the step-by-step deployment. Now, step 1 is setting up our infrastructure base. In the AWS console, navigate to Elastic Container Registry or ECR, and then we're going to create a private repository. So go ahead and create. We're going to name our repository ECS Blue-Green App, leave everything as default here, and most importantly, you want to come over here where it has image scanning settings. You want to make sure you turn on scan to push. This is going to be deprecated soon, but this is going to allow every push we make to be scanned by ECR automatically, and then go ahead and create. Next is to go to Elastic Container Service, and then we're going to create a cluster. So go ahead and go to cluster, create a cluster. Leave everything as default, and then go ahead and create. Finally, you want to come to CodeCommit, and then create a repository. Name the repository ECS Blue-Green App, and then go ahead and create. Now we're going to be creating our application files entirely from the console here using Cloud Shell here docs. First, we're going to be creating our Node.js app, but before we do that, we're going to be creating our working directory. So right here, go ahead and we're going to create the directory called ECS Blue-Green App, and then we're going to be cding into the directory. And then right inside the directory, we're going to be creating the first app. And here it is here, we're going to be creating our app.js. It's going to have a /health endpoint. Just go ahead and hit enter. Let me go ahead and clear the screen. Then we write our package.json and then go ahead and enter. Next is going to be our Docker file. So we're using ECL public gallery for our base image. Also, we're using Node.js HTTP check for our health check, and then go ahead and enter. Let me go ahead and clear the screen for us. So next we're going to write our build spec.yaml, and this is going to be basically the instruction manual for our code build. To ensure our variables expand correctly, we use the echo commands instead of printf to generate image detail.js right here. And we also make sure that image detail.js, appspec.yaml, and tagsdef.json are listed as artifacts. Let's go ahead and enter. So just to verify, let's make sure everything is there. And there we have it, everything here. That's fine. Once we verify that the four source files are created, we are going to go ahead and configure our Git identity setup. Well, let's clear. And the first thing we're going to do here is to configure our username. There you go. And then we're going to configure an email. And then we're going to use the credential helper. And then we're going to provide a credential path. There we have it. Now the next thing is to initialize our Git. So Git init. And now we're going to add our files. Files added. I'm going to make our initial commit. Add into our Git commit. And then we're going to check out our branch. And then now we're going to push to main. There you have it all pushed. Let's clear our screen. Let's verify that everything has been added correctly. So Git, there you have it. We have all our files there. Let's clear our screen. We'll come to our code commit and just check our repository. We should see all the files here added already. Step 3 now is creating the CodeBuild project. So let's navigate to CodeBuild. Here we have CodeBuild, and we're going to create a project. We'll name our project. For the source provider, we're going to pick our code commits, and then the repository is going to be, for the branch, we're going to pick main. For the environment, we're going to leave it at on-demand and then managed image. All this is correct. We're going to leave it at Amazon Linux and then standard. And then for the image, we're going to pick the 8664, and we're going to be using the latest image. And for the service role, we're going to be using the new service. One crucial step is under additional configuration here, you want to drop it down and then go ahead and enable privileged and then enable privileged mode. Without this, Docker cannot run inside the build container and our build is going to fail. And then for the environment variable, you want to scroll down here. We're going to add environment variable. We're going to add two environment variables. One is going to be our account ID, which we can grab from here and then add. The next one is going to be our image repo name, which we already created. It's going to be our ECS. It's going to be the ECS blue-green app that we created already. And then for the build spec, we're going to use the build spec file. Just go ahead and scroll down and then create our project. There you have it. Our project has been created. So now that we've created the project, CodeBuild auto-generates a service role. Also, we're going to navigate to the service role. So let's go to Identity and Access Management. Going to search for roles, and then we're going to look for the code. We're going to look for the CodeBuild right there, and then we're going to click on it, and then we're going to add an inline policy to it. So go ahead and create inline policy. We'll go to JSON, go ahead and paste it. And this is going to allow ECR to get authorization token, batch check layer availability, complete layer build upload, initiate layer upload, put image and upload layer. So this is going to help us with the ECR. And then just go ahead and click on next. We're just going to name this inline and then create policy. Now step 4 is to create load balancers. So we want to, before we create a load balancers, we want to navigate to EC2 console, and then under load balance here, we first of all have to create our target groups. So we're going to be creating 4 different target groups. So navigate to target groups, create, and it's going to be IP addresses. The first one we're going to create is going to be our staging target group for the blue deployment. Protocol is going to be HTTP, and we're going to be using port 3000. And for the health check, we're going to use a /health and then leave every other thing as default. Go ahead and click next, next, and create. And we're going to repeat the same thing for the other 3 target groups. The next one is going to be and there you have it. We've created the 4 target groups. Now it's time to create the load balancers. We're going to be creating 2 different load balancers, one for staging and one for prod. So let's go to load balancers, create load balancer. We're going to be creating application load balancer. The first one we'll create is going to be staging application load balancer. It's going to be internet facing. We're using the default VPC. And I'm just going to select all the subnets, all the availability zones and subnets. We're going to use the default security group. And for the listeners, we're going to set them to listen on port 80, and then we're going to forward to target groups. And for this, we're going to pick, for the staging, we're going to pick the staging blue, and then we're going to add another listener, and we're going to forward to port 8080. And for this, the other target group, we're going to have the staging green, and then let's go ahead and create load balancer. Now let's repeat the same thing for prod. It's going to be internet facing 2, default VPC. Let's go ahead and select the whole ASIS, default security group. This is going to listen on port 80, and this we're going to forward to the blue, and then we're going to add another listener. This is going to be 8080. And this we're going to forward to green, and then go ahead and create your load balancer. And now we're going to go back to our Cloud Shell, and we're going to be adding the required inbound rule to the Fargate tax security group inbound TCP on port 3000 from the application load balancer security group. Otherwise, the install phase is going to fail. So let's go back to Cloud Shell. So the first thing we're going to do is to get the application load balancer group ID. Let's go ahead and run this. Let's get the security group, and then let's echo both. There you go. So we have the application load balancer security group, and then we have the Fargate task security group here. And now we're just going to go ahead and open up the ports. And with this, we are authorizing ingress on the task security group, and then on port 3000, and then for the source for the application load balancer security group too. Let's go ahead and click enter. So this already exists because I ran it earlier, and that's fine. But for you, it should already allow you to run that. So this is good for us here. So let's go ahead and clear. So next is we're gonna go back to our Elastic Container Service, and then we're gonna set up our task definition in the console. So right here under Elastic Container Service, come to task definitions. Click on task definitions. We're gonna create a new task definition, and we're gonna call this app task definition. We're gonna use Linux here, so it's gonna be Fargate Linux. And for the CPU, let's just drop it down to 0.5, and then for the memory, let's drop it down to 0.52. And then for the task row, we're gonna be using the task row created for us. And keep going down. And for the container, we're gonna name our container app container. For the image URI, you're gonna come back to Elastic Container Registry, and then get your container URI. Just copy it, and then go back, and then add your URI. And then for the container port, want to remove this, and then want to add port 3000, which is what we set up already, and then TCP, and then go ahead and scroll down. Everything looks good, and then create. This is a task definition. Now if you come back to clusters and click on your cluster, so here we're going to be creating service, but we're going to be doing this using the CLI, because the ECS console has a bug that doesn't really allow you to create the green target groups, especially when you're doing a blue-green deployment. So for this, we're going to be bypassing this by using the CLI. So we're going to go back to our Cloud Shell, clear, and we're going to be running a few commands here. The first command we're going to be running is going to be to get our subnet IDs, and then we're going to go ahead and grab the security group IDs, describing the security group IDs here. There you have it. And then we are going to grab the staging blue target group ARN, and then we're going to grab the prod ARN, and now we're going to create our staging service. This right here is going to create ECS create service. It's going to create our staging service. It's going to be using our app cluster, and then the service name this one is going to be for app staging. It's going to use our task definition on port 3000. So let's go ahead and create this one. There you have it. Has been created for us. Okay, so let's clear the screen, and then we're going to repeat the same thing for the prod. There you have it. So that means if we come back to our cluster here and refresh, we're going to see two of them created for us already here, and they are active. So one is the prod and one is the staging. So let's come back to our Cloud Shell. Now we're going to be creating our appspec.yaml and then our taskdev.json. As you know, our deploy is going to be using our appspec.yaml. So right now, the first thing we need to do is to cd into our directory. So let's go ahead and cd into the directory. And then here we're going to be creating our YAML, and then go ahead and click enter. There you have it. We also export the task definition as task definition.json. So let's go ahead and export that. We're going to be using sed here to replace the image URI, and then go ahead and enter. So now let's go ahead and push. So let's go ahead, first of all, add, and then we commit. So we're going to be committing the configuration. There you go. And then let's go ahead and push. Now, step 6 is going to be wiring everything all together with AWS CodePipeline. So we're going to be creating a pipeline, but first, because we created our ECS services via the CLI, AWS did not automatically create the CodeDeploy applications. So now we have to jump back, create the application here in Cloud Shell. And for that, we're going to be creating the applications for both staging and production. First thing we're going to do is get the CodeDeploy service rule ARN. And for this, we're just going to run this. And then we're going to be running this. And then the next thing we're going to do is to get the staging listener ARN. And that's for the one for port 80. and this is going to be for the port 80. Let's go ahead and grab that, and then let's run this too. So now let's get the one for prod, and now we're going to be creating our staging code deploy app and the deployment group. So here we're going to be creating the app and then the deployment group. Go ahead and click enter, and this already exists because I did that already. And now we're going to be creating the group, and this is going to be creating the deployment group for us. Now it's giving error here because I already created this already, but I'm just running through this so you can get a feel of what is being created. And for this I'm going to create the prod. Okay, there you go, the application ID. Now let me create for the prod now. So now let's hop back in and then create the pipeline. So here in CodePipeline, we're going to create a pipeline, and we're going to be building a custom pipeline. And then next, we're naming the CI/CD pipeline, and CodePipeline is going to automatically create a role for us. That's fine. And come to settings. We don't have to make any changes here. Let's go ahead and get to the source. So for our source, we're going to be using our app we created. So we're going to pick our CodeCommit, and then it's going to be the app we created, and the branch name is going to be main. And then next, and for the build, we're going to be picking other providers, and then it's going to be from our CodeBuild, and then it's going to be a build ECS app. It's going to be a single build. Of course, we're in US East 1, and then our input is going to be our source, and then next, and we're going to be skipping this test. So we're going to be skipping deploy because we're going to be building this manually, and then skip deploy stage. Let's go ahead and create the pipeline, and there you have it. It's been created. But now we're going to be editing the role that was created for us by CodePipeline. We're going to be editing that. So let's go back to the CLI. Let's find the role that was created for us. So here we're going to be listing roles, and then we're going to be grepping for pipeline. So we should find it right there. This is the one that was created for us. Let me set a variable, and then let me make sure it's been set. Okay, awesome. Now, first of all, we're going to be attaching the AWS CodeDeploy full access to the role, and then we're going to be attaching Amazon ECS full access, and then we're going to be attaching an inline policy, and this is going to allow it to pass role, and then go ahead and enter. So with this setup, let's go back to our code pipeline. Let's come back to our code pipeline, and then we're going to be editing, and here we have a source stage. We have our build stage. We're going to be adding 3 more stages. So one is going to be the deploy staging, one is going to be the manual approval, and the last one is going to be the deploy prod. So here, go ahead and add a stage. And for this stage, we're going to be calling this stage the deploy staging. There it is. And then we're going to add an action. An action name, we're going to call this action deploy staging. And then action provider is going to be our ECS blue-green deployment. It's going to be our US East 1. Input artifact is going to be a build artifact. And then our code deploy application name is going to be the staging. And then the group is going to be the group here that we created. And then the ECS tax definition is going to be the build artifact. And we're going to be providing the task def. And then for the code deploy app spec, we're going to be picking the build artifact, and then we're going to be picking our app spec.yaml. Input artifact image is going to be this, and for here we're going to have image. And then let's go ahead and click done, and then done. And then let's add another stage, and this stage is going to be our manual approval. And then let's go ahead and add action, and action name is going to be a manual approval. Provider name is going to be manual approval. Optionally, we can add an SNS topic ARN here to send an SNS message to our QA team to be able to get an email notifying them there's a manual approval waiting for them to approve, and then they can come in here, approve it, and then it goes on to the from staging to prod. But for this, we don't have SNS topic set up. For this, just go ahead and click done, and then done. And lastly, we're going to add the last stage, which is going to be deploy to prod. Add stage, and then let's go ahead and add action. Action name is going to be deploy to prod. action provider is going to be our ECS blue-green deployment. And then input artifact is going to be, of course, our build artifact. And then for this, we're going to be picking the prod and then the group. And then we're going to be picking our build artifact and then task dev. Same thing here. And we're going to be picking our appspec.yaml. It's virtually the same thing. And then here we're going to have image too. And then go ahead and click done and then done. And then once everything has been set, let's go ahead and click save. So now everything has been saved. So now the moment of truth, we have to test the pipeline end to end. So we will simulate a developer pushing a code change. So for this, I'll go back to Cloud Shell, enter, and then we're going to be using the set command. And here we're going to be switching from version 1 to version 2, and then go ahead and click enter. And then we're going to be adding the app.js, and then here we're going to commit, and then now let's push. So once we push, when we watch the pipeline, we should see its trigger. So let's go ahead and push. There you go. So now let's go to the pipeline, and there you have it. So the store stage instantly picks up the change, and then it's going to go ahead and run. Now it's the build that is running. The build kicks off, building the Docker image and pushing it to the ECR. Once the build stage is done, the deploy stage is going to go ahead and pick up. This usually takes a few minutes. So now that the build is done, the deploy stage starts. So CodeDeploy provisions a new green task set. Once the green task set passes, the application load balancer health check on port 3000, then the traffic is shifted, and then it waits for us to manually approve it. So for our target groups, we have 2 healthy targets. So that means our pipeline should pass. So let's give it a few minutes, and then it should pass. And we can see the status by clicking the pipeline here. And this is it right here, from app version 1 to version 2. Health check, everything is healthy. So let's go back to the pipeline and give it a few minutes. This can take a few minutes because it's the first deployment, because our CodeDeploy is trying to register the new task definition by creating a new version. Also, it's trying to provision the green task, which means it's going to be spinning up new Fargate tasks, which can take about 5 to 10 minutes, especially on the first run. And there you go, our deploy stage has completed. The pipeline now pauses at the manual approval stage. Now this is where, if we configure an SNS topic, it's going to send an email to the QA team for them to come verify. And the way they verify is to go to application load balancer, because it's at the staging, deploy staging. So they want to go to application load balancer right here, go to the staging, and then get the DNS name, and then open a new browser. Let's see here if it's gonna work with Chrome. Chrome always gives me issues. So Chrome always gives me issues, but if I open another browser, maybe like Safari, and then go to it, go to the DNS name, and then enter, it should take me to version 2. Here you go. Hello from CloudGuard version 2. So, and this is how they verify that the application is working correctly. Make sure every single thing is working, and then they go ahead and come back to the pipeline and then manually approve. So here they then approve, enter their comment. They can reject or approve, but here it's approved. I'm just going to submit. Once I submit, it should automatically start moving on to the deploy prod. So go ahead and submit, and then it's going to go ahead and move to deploy prod. Now our deploy prod failed. Let me see what's going on again. Let's see why it's failing. Okay, I didn't spell the image correctly. So let's go ahead and fix that. Let's go back to our pipeline, and then let's go ahead and edit. I'm going to go ahead and edit the deploy prod, edit stage. Go ahead and edit. So I'm just going to come back here. I just have to learn how to spell image, and then done, and then go ahead and save. There you have it. So right now our deploy prod has completed, which means our application should be live. and which means if we go back to our application load balancer and go to the prod and get the DNS name, and then go to Safari and check, it should take us to the application, and there you have it. That means our application is live, and that's the complete pipeline. And before we wrap up, let's talk about cleanup. To avoid dependency errors, you must delete your resources in this particular order. And that is the complete production grade CI/CD pipeline on AWS. We have now implemented CodeCommit, CodeBuild, CodeDeploy, CodePipeline, ECS Fargate application load balancers, and ECR, all orchestrated together to achieve a zero downtime deployment with enforced manual approval process. If this video brought you value, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. All the code and full deployment guide are available in the CloudGuard portfolio project site. Next up is going to be our project 19. Project 19 is going to be our multi-strategy disaster recovery plan. Hit the notification bell so you can be notified when this video is ready. Thank you for watching and have a great day.